She found out about her husband's affair the same day she was buying him a gift. Ironic, isn't it? When you love someone, you think about how to make them happy. When they betray you, you think about how to survive. That day she stood in a store, choosing a watch, the very one he'd wanted for months. The saleswoman smiled and asked, "A gift for your husband?" She nodded, even smiled back, not knowing that at that exact moment he was sitting in a cafe with another woman, holding her hand the same way he used to hold hers. She found out that evening, by accident. A phone, a notification, a photo. She stared at the screen in disbelief. Not disbelief in his betrayal, but in herself, that she hadn't felt it, that she hadn't seen it, that she had been living beside a man who was already living a different life. She didn't scream or cry. She just sat down on the floor and stayed there. She couldn't remember how long. Only that at some point the lights had gone out and her hands were shaking. When he came home, everything was ready. Dinner, candles, wine. She had decided not to say anything. She wanted him to. Let him destroy what they had built for 10 years with his own words. He walked in, kissed her on the cheek, smiled, as if nothing had happened. She watched him and thought she'd understand who he really was. But she didn't. Because he still looked like the same man, familiar, warm, close, and yet completely foreign. They sat down to eat in silence. She felt a heavy stone settle under her ribs. Then she couldn't hold it anymore and said, "I saw it." He didn't ask, "What?" He just froze. Silence filled the room. She expected excuses, words, explanations, but he said only one word. Yes. No explanations, no emotion, no fight. And that yes hit harder than any scream ever could. After that, everything slowed down. The sounds, the air, even her breathing. All she could hear was something breaking inside her. He said, "I didn't want you to find out like this." She asked, "How should I have found out? Was I supposed to guess? Or would you have told me when it was convenient?" He looked down and said nothing. She stood up, picked up her glass, and said, "I don't know who you are. Maybe I never did." He tried to explain, saying it was a mistake, that it didn't mean anything, that he was just confused. But the word mistake sounded ridiculous. You can drop a cup by mistake, not someone's trust. That night he left, packed his things, said he needed time. She didn't stop him. She was too tired, too empty inside. That first night, she didn't sleep. She wandered through the house, touching his things, his shirt, his mug, the phone charger he always forgot to plug in. Everything felt so alive, as if he'd just stepped out of the room. But he hadn't. Morning came, and with it, not anger, not pain, just silence. As if someone had turned the volume off in her life. She made breakfast for their son, took him to school, came back home, and realized for the first time that she didn't know who she was without him. For years, she had lived through him, around him, for him. And now, there was only her. No excuses. No roles. And that was the scariest part. Not that he left, but that there was nowhere left to hide. Weeks passed. He didn't call, not once, and she didn't write. Not out of pride. There was simply nothing to say. One night she heard music from the neighbor's apartment, the same song they used to dance to, and suddenly she cried. Not from heartbreak, but from memories. From remembering how good it once was, and how foolishly they lost it. Time passed. The pain dulled. She worked more, saw her friends again, started yoga, learned to laugh, and one day, she realized something simple. You can live. Even after. Even without him. Then, one evening, he came back. He called first, asking, "Can I come?" Her heart tightened, not from love, but from fear. He showed up at the door, thinner, tired, without his old confidence. "I understand now," he said. "I can't live without you." She listened and thought. How easily men say, "I understand," when everything's already broken. He begged for forgiveness, said that woman meant nothing, that it was just a weakness. She asked, "Why did you leave?" He said, "Because I couldn't bear to look you in the eyes." And for the first time, she smiled, sadly, but sincerely. "It's too late," she said. He stood there quietly for a while, then asked, "Do you still love me?" She answered, "I don't know. I loved the man who hadn't betrayed me." He lowered his eyes and left. She stood by the door, then went to the kitchen, poured herself a glass of water, and looked out the window. For the first time in a long time, she felt calm. Not because she had forgiven, but because she had let go. Months later, she saw him again, on the street. He wasn't alone. The same woman was walking beside him. She walked past and felt nothing. No anger, no pain, just a quiet sadness, like hearing an old song you once loved, and she realized it was over. But endings aren't always bad. Sometimes they're just the beginning of something new. She had changed. She was stronger now, more honest, no longer afraid of being alone. Because loneliness isn't when there's no one next to you. It's when the person beside you keeps hurting you. And if someone asked her what she felt toward him now, she'd say, nothing. Not cold, not warm, just nothing. And that, she'd learned, was the most freeing feeling of all. Eventually, she fell in love again. Not quickly, not dramatically. Just one day, someone looked at her not as a woman who'd been hurt, but as someone worth loving, without pasts, without shadows. At first, she didn't believe it. She tested it, held back, but he turned out to be different. Not perfect, just real. He didn't promise, "I'll never hurt you." He said, "If it ever hurts, just tell me." And for the first time in years, she believed. When he held her hand, she felt peace, not fear. And she knew this was real. No big words, no vows. Just being together without the fear of breaking. Sometimes she still thought of that day, the store, the watch. They still sat in their box, unopened. She hadn't thrown them away. They were a reminder, not of betrayal, but of herself, of how important it is not to lose yourself for someone else, of how love only works when you can still stand on your own 2 feet. And now, when someone tells her, "I love you," she smiles and answers, "That's good. Just don't lose yourself while loving me."